This is session 2. So thanks for joining me, even if you're joining me after the fact, kind of later. It's gonna be really great. So we'll give it another moment here. Hi. Welcome to Self-Care Sundays. Just as a reminder, I do these on Sundays now. This is just a little bit of time where we can gather together and do some relaxation practices and take care of ourselves. There's a variety of different ways that I'm planning to continue doing this. Last week we did something called progressive muscle relaxation, which is where we would tense our toes and then relax them, and then we do that with all the major muscle groups moving up all the way towards our head. For today's practice, I asked that everybody took a look at assertiveness and how they could be assertive in their life, and just what the balance between that was. If you can be too assertive, then you're aggressive, and if you're not assertive enough, then you'd be passive. So if you have any wins that you had in your life today, or just this whole past week, feel free to give them a share in the comments. I'd love to hear your assertive wins from the past week. Today's virtue that I chose, I'm just going in order. There's 52 in here, so we got a lot of virtues to practice, but I figure one a week is plenty, and if you feel like a virtue isn't something that you need to be working on, and the one that I suggest isn't the one that you want to be focused on, definitely make sure that you're choosing something that works for you. So this past week, we did assertiveness, and I practiced being assertive when I had discomfort around boundaries or discomfort around sensory experiences. I kind of just tapped it and I said, hey, can I have this little change? And I tried to advocate for myself a little bit more, and it was hard. It was hard. I'm not used to knowing what I want, I think, is part of it. So I'm getting used to knowing what I want and what is important to me. And I realized that it's really hard to be assertive for what you want and need when you don't even know what you want and need. So I'm still continuing that process. But learning the balance between being too passive, for me, that's what I have trouble with, was really helpful. So as we move on to this week's virtue, if you'd like to join me with this one, you're welcome to. This week we're going to work on caring. What is caring? Caring is giving love and attention to people and things that matter to you. You can show that you care about someone by saying and doing things that help them. Caring about something you are doing means giving it your very best. When you care for someone, you pay a lot of attention to them and take interest in what is happening with them. Caring shows that something or someone really matters to you. You can care for yourself, for others, a pet, or a special thing. When you care for an animal, you watch over it and take good care of its needs. So as we continue with this, it kind of gives a little bit about why you should practice caring and how that can help us all feel interconnected. I believe that caring is also really important, not only for that connection, but also caring can be something that is good for you too, because when you show care for other people, then they typically show it back. It also shows you different ways to practice care, and then it goes on to signs of success. So congratulations, you are practicing care when you treat others and yourself with care, let people know what they say is important by looking at them and listening closely, handle things carefully, being gentle and loving with anyone or anyone placed in your care, or treating your body with respect. I also believe that any virtue can go too far. Excuse me. So what I mean by this is I think that, like last week when we talked about assertiveness, going too far with assertiveness can become aggressiveness. And I think going too far with caring it's a little bit different, because when you go too far with caring about things or about other people, sometimes you can try to change other people, or you can invest too much of your own time and energy and self into something else. So finding that balance of care for yourself, maybe you care too much about yourself, maybe you care too much about other people, but finding that balance of care is really important and is a really tricky line to kind of walk. So yeah, for people who just joined me this week in our self-care Sundays, every week I choose a new virtue, and I will post this after so you can watch it back if you'd like, but this week I'm working on caring, and that is the virtue of the week. So now that we've talked a little bit about caring, I'm gonna move on to, oh, wait, I left myself notes because I had things today. I also, as a part of caring, I was thinking a lot about the phrase, treat others the way that you would like to be treated. And I'm gonna throw out a little bit of maybe you ask them. It's really that simple. You just ask them and you listen to them. And I think that really leans into caring about them, because when you care about somebody, you do ask and you do listen. So anyway, that I was thinking about that. Treat others the way you want to be treated, and what that phrase means. So as we continue on, now we're going to talk a little bit about anxiety. I'm somebody who has struggled with anxiety and still does struggle with anxiety, and may possibly struggle with anxiety for a very long time, just because I'm very prone to that. But as I've continued to learn to work with my body, I have learned a lot about the nervous system and how the nervous system works, so I just wanted to give like a little crash course about that and why I'm doing this, because I think it's really important information to have. And everybody has different levels of anxiety, so if you're like super anxious all the time, this can help you, and if you're just anxious some of the time, congratulations, that's awesome, and also we can work with that. So when we're talking about the anxiety in the nervous system, there's two different, well, there's the parasympathetic nervous system and there's the sympathetic nervous system. There's two major branches of the nervous system. And those branches of the nervous system give our brain input about whether we are safe or not all the time. And so the nervous system is really sympathetic to what's going on around it, right? So it is the fight or flight response. It does a lot with that. So the sympathetic nervous system really helps us know when danger is happening and when danger is not happening. And give that fight or flight response. The parasympathetic nervous system, on the other hand, has a lot to do with rest and digest. So while both of these branches of the nervous system are super important to our experience of stress and anxiety, we are typically stuck in the sympathetic nervous system states when we're experiencing anxiety and nervousness. So as we go back into our practices today, we're trying to move towards the parasympathetic nervous system and towards the rest and digest. So now we're going to go on to our somatic meditation. This one is specifically for chronic pain, and I have found it very helpful, but if chronic pain isn't something that you deal with, this can still be helpful to create that kind of rest and digest state. So I have this, here we go. This is from a YouTube video by Suki Baxter, and I literally just took all the information from her video, and I printed it out, like the exact words that she says, because I find that they're super helpful. I'll also link the video down below once this is posted after. But yeah, I think we'll just move into this somatic meditation. Only do what's comfortable for you and your body. Just, let your body do what it needs to do. Don't do anything that feels unsafe. Don't do anything your doctor hasn't told you to do, if you think it might be an issue for you. But otherwise, I encourage you just to be open to giving it a try. This one specifically is about 20 minutes long, so if that feels too long for you, you can leave at any time. But I find it really helpful. So I'm going to take a sip of this, and then let's just try it together. Let's just try it. Okay. Typically, I find that sitting up is really helpful for this. You can choose to close your eyes at certain points, although it does ask you to open your eyes for a good portion of it because it involves our experience with our environments. So just take a second, find a comfortable spot, and we'll get started. This is a guided somatic meditation for chronic pain. If you've been dealing with pain, whether it's been mild or severe for a long time, you may have noticed that pain will expand to take up your entire awareness. And it's basically all that you can focus on. So in this guided meditation, what we're doing is really expanding your capacity for sensory awareness. We want to open that up a little bit so that you can become aware of more experiences than just the pain experience. This has a very calming effect on your nervous system, which will then decrease the sensitization of your nerves and decrease your pain. So I want to go ahead and start with the question that I use at the beginning of every session, and that is, what has your attention right now? What has your attention right now? And if you've been in pain for a while, what has your attention is probably something that's pretty uncomfortable. It's probably your pain, and that's okay. So just bringing your awareness to your body and checking to those, and really linger. Really land in the places where you're drawn to, as long as your vision wants to be there. And just let yourself soak it up. Let yourself explore and absorb the colors and the shapes and the textures around you. There may be something like a painting that has some really beautiful color in it, or a flower that's a bright pop of color. Maybe if you're outside, there may be trees that draw your awareness, or even wildlife that's very attractive. You may notice maybe the angularity of a chair that's in your room, or whatever. It's not really important. The what doesn't matter. Just allow your vision to be drawn. And if you're indoors, I invite you, if you have access to a window, to really let your gaze expand outside the confines of the window and outside the confines of the room that you're in, just noticing if there are things outside the space you're immediately in that draw your attention. And if you are outside, notice if there are colors and textures that are quite far away, that are in your distance, that are drawing your gaze, and let yourself land on those just as much as things that are much closer, that are much nearer to you. So explore that, looking at things that are close, and then looking at things that are further away. And as you do this, maybe notice what's going on with that sensory experience in your body. So maybe just check in. And what has your attention now in your body? And it may be the same thing, the same sensation that drew your attention at the beginning, and that's totally fine, or it may have shifted a little. And what I want you to be aware of, what's really important when it comes to pain, is I've noticed a tendency for people who are dealing with pain to get really into their story around the pain. And there's nothing wrong with this. But for this practice, we really want to stay in the sensory information. So what that looks like a lot of times is I will ask someone, what do you notice? And they'll notice some pain. And then they'll say, I know it's because I need to stretch more, or I know it's because I sit in front of a computer all day long, or I know it's because of that accident I had where I fell off my horse 5 years ago, or I injured my back, or, you know, whatever the thing is that they've pinpointed as like the source or the problem or the diagnosis or the root issue. And there's nothing wrong with that, but we kind of want to stay out of that story for now. So very similar to how you would in traditional meditation. If a thought came up into your awareness, you would just notice that thought and let it drift on by without needing to connect to it, without needing to act on it, without needing to be engaged or embroiled with it in any way. So this is a way that you can work with pain without becoming embroiled in a pain cycle. Right? Just noticing that it's there. And then let's come back to connecting to the environment. And as you have taken in the sights, start to notice the sounds that are around you. Start to notice what you hear in the environment. Maybe if you're indoors, you might notice the hum of a refrigerator, for example, or a fan that's on, or there's air conditioning unit or a heater going, or maybe other people in your environment. Maybe someone in another room has a television on, or listening to music or something like that. Just begin to pay attention to the sounds. The sounds that maybe you didn't realize were happening until I mentioned that. If you're outside, of course, there could be birds or there could be wildlife. It could be traffic noise. Again, this isn't about good or bad sounds. We're just starting to pay attention to what is happening around us right now. And as you do this, again, you might start to feel some shifts happening inside your body. And if you don't, that's okay. There is no judgment here. We're just observing that experience. Paying attention to those sounds and noticing what you're noticing. Maybe there's a clock ticking. Maybe there's wind in the trees, rain falling. All kinds of things can be happening. And then coming back to your body again. Keeping your eyes open if possible. Notice what has attention in your physical body again. What has your attention? Notice what sensation you're aware of it. It may be exactly the same thing that you were aware of initially at the beginning of this meditation, or it may have shifted. It may be something completely different. It may be that the sensation has changed itself, or that you may be drawn to another area of your body. And if you find at any time that your pain or discomfort is intensifying, come back to that practice of visually connecting to your environment, listening to the sounds around you. And now I'd like to invite you to put your awareness on your breath. Your breath is a primary pattern. It's one of the very first things you do. You're born in life and you breathe, basically, breath. Is it down low in your belly? Is it up high in your chest? Maybe. Is it very wide? Is it very narrow? Maybe it's just in your throat. It might be right here. Maybe it's more in the front of your body or in the back of your body. You do have capacity for breath in your back as well as in the front. So just noticing, where's your breath? Where is it naturally going in your body? And even just that will start to shift your breath. Often just getting a sense of how that's happening naturally without you trying to change it, without, doing your breath in a certain way. There's no need to practice any kind of yogic breath or meditation breath. We're just noticing. Almost like a scientist observing. And when you have a really good sense of how your breath is moving in your body, I'd like to invite you to find a place in your body that feels comfortable. Feels like a really good spot. Feels like things are going well there. And if you've been in pain for a long time, this can be a bit of a challenge. So if you're having trouble finding a space in your body that's comfortable, just try to find a spot that's neutral. Try to find a spot that's apart from that pain pattern, a place where maybe you don't feel particularly good, but you don't feel particularly bad either. And if it's okay to do that, go ahead and let your awareness linger in that place. Very similar to how you let your vision land around your space wherever you're at. See if you can let your attention linger on this place in your body that is comfortable and neutral. And just notice what happens with that. And again, if at any time you start to feel your pain intensifying, come back to connecting through a place of comfort and neutrality, coming back to kind of the wholeness of the experience. Are you noticing the same thing that had your attention at the beginning, or is it a little bit different? Maybe it's the same thing, but it's shifted. Maybe you feel something else and that. Maybe you can have an expanded awareness where you're holding attention and awareness for the pain and discomfort and also something else. Maybe also a couple other things. Maybe you can be present with more of your physical experience than just that experience of discomfort. That often just takes up our whole awareness, especially when it's been chronic pain for such a long period of time. And so now I'd like to invite you, if you'd like to go ahead and play with some movement. So keeping your eyes open, I want to let your gaze travel around the room until you find one of those things that you like to land on. And let your head shake very gently, no, and yes, while keeping your eyes on that thing you like to land on. So we're playing with our eyes landing, and then your head is going to move while your vision stays on something. And again, you may notice that a breath comes, or that there's maybe a deepening to your breath. And then allow your gaze to shift to something else, and we're going to do that again. So let your gaze land, and we're going to make slow movements, and it's important that these are slow. Nodding yes, and no. Okay, and then we're going to play with the opposites. So I want you to let your head turn. If it's okay, turn your head just a little bit to the left, and then slide your eyes to the right. So your head is moving left, and your eyes are going to shift a bit to the right. And now we're just going to hang out here for a few seconds. Okay, and then go ahead and let your head turn to the right, and your eyes are going to move to the left. So a lot of our movements are related to our visual cortex because that's how we navigate, that's how we see the world, and it's connected to how we move. So when we start to break up our habitual visual movement patterns, that's another way of giving our brain new sensory input, new sensory data, so that we can sort of interrupt those pain pathways in the body, and then go ahead and come back to the middle. And again, I'm just going to take one more moment to ask, what has your attention now? What are you noticing? And notice I don't say, what are you feeling? Which is essentially what I'm asking, but I'm asking, what are you noticing? Because what we notice isn't always a feeling, and sometimes we can get a little tripped up by that word. So, what has your attention? It's a very broad question, and there's no wrong answer to that. Maybe you notice a little bit of lightness or a bit of calm. Maybe you notice a tingling or a warmth. Or maybe you notice any number of things. There are plenty of answers to this question, and again, like I said, there's no right or wrong. If you're in a little bit of a stress state, then painful stimulus actually seems more threatening to your brain. So it's sort of like we're in a little bit of pain, so now we're a little bit stressed, and that makes the pain more intense. So now we're up here, so now we're more stressed, and we keep kind of stepping up and up and up and up. So when we're able to interrupt that and get some other sensory data in through to your brain, it's called non-nociceptive data, meaning that it's not threatening. And what happens is it creates this sense of safety. And it downregulates that stress signal in your body so that the pain can then decrease. And then that decreases the sensitivity to pain. So that you're not quite getting as loud of a signal to your brain. It does take time, so often people feel quite a bit of relief initially, but your pain can come back. And so if that happens, it's just that you need to continue to build these non-nociceptive pathways, and that can take some time to make them more habitual in your body. I hope that you found this somatic meditation helpful. So this, again, I'm just gonna preface by end this by saying that this is a really lovely meditation by a woman named Suki Baxter. And I did print out word for word what she says in her video that I will again link down below. She has a lot of really lovely meditations. The one that I picked today was specifically for chronic pain because I do know several people in my life who also struggle with chronic pain, and it is way more widespread than we'd like to believe. There's probably a lot of people in your life that deal with chronic pain and you just have no idea. So taking that time to acknowledge that is really important to me, and I wanted to include that meditation as a portion. I also really like that it's very somatic and very, when I say somatic, I mean like very body-based. So it's not so much about, oh, we're going to change the ways that we think, which can also be very helpful, but for some people, changing the ways and the patterns that you think is really hard to do when your body is still continually telling you that you are in pain or that you're stressed. So finding other ways to acknowledge the body and incorporate the body in healing can be really important. So if you are interested in more tips for anxiety and depression and other mental health conditions, definitely join me again on Sundays for Self-Care Sundays at 8 p.m. As we wrap it up here, I just wanted to say that next week we're going to talk about movement. Nothing will be too terribly intense. You can probably just wear what you wore all day, but if you'd like to wear something a little bit more comfortable, you're welcome to do that. This will be posted, and as per usual, we're going to do another virtue and then a movement-based activity next week. So if you'd like to continue building your body and mind with me as a portion of Self-Care Sunday, join me next Sunday. And this week practice caring. Practice caring and see how it feels. And I'd love to hear your wins with caring in the comments. And if you didn't post any of your wins with assertiveness last week, feel free to post those in the comments as well. As always, I love you all, and I hope you have a great rest of your night. So relax and enjoy the evening. Okay, bye.